The house was quiet except for the low voices drifting from the dining room. I had only come downstairs to grab a glass of water, but the words stopped me cold halfway through the hallway. My mother's voice, light with excitement, carried easily. The guest list is almost final. We'll keep it intimate, just family and close friends. Of course, Sarah must shine. This is her big night. Then my father chuckled. Yes, only the people who make us proud should be there. We don't want any distractions. There was a pause, and I could hear the sound of a pen scratching on paper. Then my mother spoke again, her tone sharper. Better not tell Anna about it. You know how she gets. She'll feel left out, but honestly, she doesn't belong at something this important. She always brings a mood, and this isn't about her. My chest tightened. I gripped the wall to steady myself. They were talking about me, my own parents planning my sister's engagement party and making sure I wasn't part of it. I pressed my lips together, willing myself not to cry too loudly. I agree, my father said, his voice calm but firm. Let's not complicate things. Sarah deserves a perfect night. Anna will only make it uncomfortable. The words cut deeper than a knife. Perfect night. Complicated. Uncomfortable. That was what my parents thought of me. Not their daughter. Not family. Just a shadow that didn't fit into their picture of celebration. I stayed frozen there, afraid to move, afraid to make a sound. My throat burned with questions I couldn't ask. What had I done so wrong that they were ashamed to even invite me? Why was I the one they had to hide? As I stood there, I heard my sister's laugh join theirs. She must have come in quietly. She sounded happy, almost smug. Don't worry, Mom, Dad. I never expected Anna to be there. It's better this way. Her words sealed it. Not only did my parents want me gone, but my sister, my only sibling, was fine with it, maybe even pleased. I backed away slowly, the floor creaking beneath my bare feet. My hand trembled as I clutched the glass I had come downstairs for, but suddenly I wasn't thirsty anymore. The whole world felt heavy on my shoulders. Upstairs in my room, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring into the dark. My chest rose and fell in shallow breaths, the ache in my throat making it hard to breathe. I thought about the countless times I had been there for them, helping with chores, covering for Sarah's mistakes, giving up my own needs so she could shine. And yet, here I was, erased from their happiness like I was never part of their story. Tears blurred my vision, but I blinked them away. Somewhere inside me, beyond the pain, was a small voice asking why I kept longing for love that hurt me every time. Still, that night, the only thing I felt was heartbreak. A sharp, lonely kind of heartbreak that left me trembling in silence. I was the firstborn, but it never really felt like I was the one who opened the door for our family. From the time I could remember, Sarah was always the star. She was 2 years younger than me, softer in voice, brighter in smile, and somehow always managed to win our parents' hearts without even trying. People often said, "Sarah is such a sweet girl. She makes everyone happy." No one ever said that about me. I wasn't wild or careless. I was just different, quiet, sensitive. I worked hard in school, tried to make good grades, and followed the rules. But my efforts always felt invisible, like drops of water falling into sand. My parents seemed to look at me and only see what I wasn't. My mother especially cared about how things looked. She wanted a family that other people admired. She liked when Sarah sang at school events or danced in church programs. She liked showing off her younger daughter's laughter and charm. And she liked when people praised her for raising such a perfect child. With me, it was the opposite. If I made a mistake, even a small one, she would sigh loudly and say, "Why can't you be more like your sister?" Those words followed me through childhood like a shadow I couldn't escape. One memory stays sharp in my mind. I must have been 10. Sarah had a birthday party in the backyard, with balloons, cake, and all her friends. I remember helping to serve the cake, but when it was time to take pictures, my mom gently pushed me out of the way. "Let Sarah's friends stand near her," she whispered, as if I didn't belong in the frame. I smiled through it, but I felt a sting deep in my chest. That sting never really left. By the time we reached high school, the gap between us had grown. Sarah was outgoing, always surrounded by people. I, on the other hand, focused on studies and part-time jobs. I wanted to ease the burden on my parents by paying for my own books, even helping with bills when I could. But no matter what I did, it never seemed to count. When Sarah got into trouble, once skipping classes, another time failing a test, it was brushed aside. "She's just young, she'll find her way," my dad would say. When I made a mistake, like coming home late after work, I was met with cold silence and disappointed stares. Even now, as an adult, nothing much has changed. I work long hours at a small office job. The pay isn't glamorous, but it keeps me steady. I cover my own rent, my own bills, and rarely ask for help. But in my parents' eyes, my life looks ordinary, not something to brag about. Sarah, meanwhile, is the one they parade around, her stylish clothes, her pretty pictures, her relationship with a man they adore. It hurts, but I've grown used to carrying that pain quietly. I've never been the type to scream or demand love. I tell myself that if I keep my head down and do my best, maybe one day they'll see me for who I am. But deep down, I know they already decided long ago what role I play in this family. To them, I'm the difficult one, the one who never shines. At gatherings, I've heard relatives whisper, "She's the serious one, isn't she?" Not like her sister. Sometimes my mother would laugh at that, almost proudly, as if my seriousness was proof that something was wrong with me. The worst part is I love them. I love my family more than I can explain. I have always wanted to belong, to hear them say, "We're proud of you too." That longing has shaped everything I do, from the way I dress to the way I hold back my true feelings just to avoid conflict. But no matter how much I bend myself, it's never enough. I think about all the times I stood in the shadows so Sarah could shine. I gave her my allowance once so she could buy a dress for a school dance. I covered for her when she lied about staying at a friend's house. I even helped her with homework when she was too distracted. But none of those sacrifices were remembered. If anything, they became invisible threads holding her pedestal higher. Now, at this point in my life, I can see the scars favoritism has left on. It made me second-guess my worth, doubt my voice, and question if love had to be earned rather than freely given. And yet, part of me still aches for the same people who caused that hurt. That is what makes it so heavy. So when I overheard my parents planning Sarah's engagement party without me, it wasn't just about one event. It was years of exclusion pressed into a single moment. A lifetime of being on the outside looking in. And no matter how much I tell myself to be strong, the next morning, I woke up with a heavy chest. Sleep had not come easily. I kept replaying their words in my head. My mother's sharp voice saying I didn't belong, my father's quiet agreement, my sister's satisfied laugh. I knew I couldn't carry it silently. The questions pressed too hard against my heart. I needed to hear it directly from her, even if it broke me. I waited until my father left for work, and Sarah went out with her fiancé. My mother was in the kitchen, cutting vegetables. She looked peaceful, humming softly, like everything in the world was fine. My hands trembled as I stepped inside. "Mom," I said, my voice low. She glanced at me quickly, then turned back to the chopping board. "What is it?" I swallowed hard. "I heard you last night. You were planning Sarah's engagement party. Why didn't you invite me?" For a moment, she didn't answer. The knife kept moving, slicing through carrots. Then she placed it down, wiped her hands on a cloth, and looked at me. Her face was calm, but her eyes were cold. "Anna," she said slowly, "this is not about you. This is Sarah's time. We don't want anything to spoil it." I stared at her, confused. "Spoil it? How could I spoil it? I'm her sister." My mother let out a small sigh, the kind she used whenever she thought I was being difficult. "You don't understand. You have a way of making things heavy. You ask too many questions, you don't smile enough, you don't fit in with the kind of people you'll embarrass the family." Her words struck me like a slap. Embarrass the family. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. After everything I've done for this family? After all the times I stood by Sarah, covered for her, helped you when money was tight, you think I would embarrass you? My voice cracked. She looked at me with that same steady coldness. "It's not about what you've done in the past. It's about now. People are watching. We need to show them the best side of our family. You're not suited for that. I'm sorry, but this is how it has to be." I felt tears rising, but I bit them back. "Not suited. I'm your daughter. Am I really so shameful to you?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Don't twist my words. You always make everything about yourself. Can't you just let your sister have her moment without turning it into your drama?" The room felt smaller with every word she said. My heart pounded so loudly I thought it would break through my chest. "So I'm not invited because I don't make you proud. Because I'm not Sarah." She turned away, picking up the knife again, as if the conversation was finished. "You're making this harder than it needs to be. Please, just stay away that night. It's for the best." I stood there in silence, staring at the woman who raised me, who once held me when I cried as a child. But now all I saw was distance. I realized that nothing I had done, no sacrifice, no effort, would ever be enough to earn her love the way Sarah had it. Slowly, I walked out of the kitchen. My hands felt numb, my chest hollow. Upstairs, I sat on my bed and let the tears finally fall. Each drop carried years of quiet sacrifices no one remembered. The nights I worked extra hours to help with bills. The days I gave up my own plans to care for Sarah. The countless times I swallowed my feelings so no one would worry. And yet, in the end, I was the one who would ruin their image. It was not just rejection. It was erasure. A cruel reminder that in their eyes, I was not part of the family worth showing. As the tears slowed, a strange clarity came. I could stay silent, keep being the invisible daughter who accepted every wound. Or I could decide, for once, to stop letting them define me. My heart was torn, but I knew something had to change. This pain was too deep to ignore. That day, without realizing it, I had taken the first step on a new journey. The sun was setting when David sat by Michael's grave, and the air carried a kind of celebration light that only graduation day could bring. In his hands was the journal, was full, the same one that had carried his brothers and friends holding flowers. Final truth. Michael sat in the crowd, opened it to the last his hands trembling, running his fingers slowly across Michael's handwriting. His heart pounded with pride. David whispered. For years he had dreamed of this day. His daughter set him free in the walking end. Across the stage, the words echoed in his heart. He adjusted his tie nervously and looked scanning the sea of graduates. You trusted the wrong person. There she never stopped his little girl, even now a young woman. That was who you were, Michael, kind, loyal. Michael's eyes watered. I will make sure. He thought about the nights he worked late shifts just to pay for her books. He placed the journal on top of the mornings he skipped meals, the leather cover catching the last bit of light. The weekends he spent driving her to school events. It felt every sacrifice, leaving it there with Michael. This was supposed to be their moment to him. The announcer called her name, his hand resting on the cool stone. She walked proudly, tight, her gown swaying, forced the words out clear and strong. Michael stood, I won't let her laughter be louder than anyone around him. Your story will be remembered as he shouted her name. I promise. His pride drowned out his tears. The wind moved through the trees above. When the ceremony carrying the sound of parents rushed forward to greet their children, almost like a reply. Michael pushed through the crowd. David closed his eyes, roses in hand, letting the peace of the moment wash over him. He could almost hear her voice calling. Since the funeral, Dad, he felt calm in his head. Grace stretched out his arms, watching quietly, but Emily didn't run to him. Evelyn was there too. She ran right past her hands folded straight into the arms of another man. They gave him space. Michael knowing this moment belonged to him. His smile slipped as he watched Emily wrap her arms around David, taking one last look at the grave before the crowd clapped when Emily took the microphone. His heart was still heavy with loss, but it carried something else now too, waiting for her to mention him, and the knowledge that Michael's truth. I want to thank the man who has been my rock. Hey, besties. Her voice thanks so much for watching till the end. David, my stepdad. David uncovered the shocking truth about his brother Michael's death. I wouldn't be here without you. The smiling audience cheered. Had been hiding a dark smiled proudly all along, placing his hand on Emily's shoulder like he was Michael's the only father she saved with honor. Michael, if you love this story, don't forget to like, share, drop a comment. Whispers began to ripple through the crowd for more gripping. Some parents glanced at him with pity, in the next one. Others with confusion. His throat tightened as he tried to swallow the ache in his chest. He had imagined this moment so different. A hug, a thank you, a simple acknowledgement. Instead, it felt like someone had ripped his heart out in front of the world. He lowered the flowers slowly, his hands shaking. His daughter didn't even glance in his direction. She didn't see him standing there, or maybe she chose not to. Michael's vision blurred as the applause echoed around him, but inside he felt hollow. All the years of sacrifice, all the love he poured out, swept away in a single moment. And as he stood in that crowded stadium, surrounded by laughter and cheers, only one thought echoed in his mind. When did I lose my own daughter? Michael had never been a perfect man, but if there was one thing he was proud of, it was how hard he worked for his daughter. He grew up in a small town where nothing came easy, so when Emily was born, he promised himself she would never lack the things he did. He took 2 jobs when she was little, fixing cars during the day and working security at night. Sleep was a luxury, but he didn't mind. Every time he came home tired and saw Emily asleep on the couch with her schoolbooks scattered around, his heart softened. He would quietly cover her with a blanket, kiss her forehead, and whisper, "Daddy's got you." Those early years with her were the happiest of his life. Saturdays were their special days. They would go to the park, eat cheap ice cream, and laugh at the ducks chasing crumbs. Emily's laughter was music to him, the sound that gave meaning to every sacrifice. But things started to change when his marriage to Linda fell apart. Arguments that used to end in silence turned into days of cold shoulders. Linda complained about his long hours, how he was never home. Michael tried to explain he was doing it for Emily, for their future, but Linda wanted more than explanations. She wanted a partner who was present. When Emily turned 12, the divorce came. Michael remembered the day the papers were signed. He left the courthouse with his chest tight and his hands empty. The thought of not waking up every day in the same house as his daughter nearly broke him. But he told himself he would fight to stay close to her, no matter what. After the divorce, Linda moved on quicker than he expected. It wasn't long before she introduced Emily to David. David was everything Michael wasn't. Where Michael's hands were rough from years of labor, David's were clean and soft. Where Michael's money came in slow and hard-earned, David's came steady from a corporate job that kept him in suits and ties. He was polite, charming, the kind of man who knew how to win people over with just a smile. At first, Michael tried to stay calm about it. He told himself that Emily was old enough to understand he was still her father, no matter who else came into the picture. But slowly, he noticed little changes. Emily started talking about David this and David that. She laughed at his jokes, praised the gifts he bought, and shared stories about dinners at fancy restaurants Michael couldn't afford. The first time she called him Dad by mistake, Michael laughed it off, but inside it stung like a blade. He would pick her up for their weekends together, and she would be distracted, scrolling on her phone, talking about trips David promised her. The simple joys they once shared, board games, old movies, long talks about her dreams, felt smaller compared to the world David gave her. Michael tried to hold on. He saved up to buy her the same phone all her friends had. He learned to cook her favorite meals so their time together would feel special. He even cut back on hours to be more present. But no matter what he did, it felt like David was always 2 steps ahead. The worst part was Linda's attitude. She never missed a chance to compare the 2 men. If Michael was late by 10 minutes, she would sigh and say, "David never keeps Emily waiting." If he couldn't afford the latest thing Emily wanted, Linda would say, "Well, David already got it for her." Michael's insecurity grew heavy. He tried to hide it, smiling for Emily's sake. But every time she chose to sit closer to David or talk to him first, it was like losing a piece of her. By the time Emily was 16, the gap between them had widened. She stopped calling him Daddy and simply said Dad, short and distant. She started canceling weekends, saying she was busy or had plans with friends. He could see her slipping through his fingers, but he didn't know how to stop it. David, meanwhile, seemed to grow more important in her life. He showed up to every school event, cheered the loudest at her games, and helped with her homework. Michael tried to match that energy, but between bills, work, and limited time with her, it was a fight he felt he was losing. Still, he never gave up. He reminded himself that he was her real father, the one who held her as a baby, the one who worked himself to the bone so she could have opportunities. But late at night, lying awake in his small apartment, he often wondered if love and sacrifice were in. And deep down, a quiet fear grew inside him. What if one day, Emily forgot who he was to her? What if David truly replaced him? That fear lived with him every day, even as he smiled and pretended everything was fine. It was the silent ache that followed him long before graduation day, tore his heart wide open. It happened one afternoon, a few months before graduation. Michael had taken Emily out for lunch at a small diner they used to visit when she was younger. He had been looking forward to the day, hoping it would be one of those rare moments where they could sit and talk without distractions. He had even arrived early, making sure her favorite milkshake was already waiting on the table. Emily walked in, phone in hand, her long hair falling over her shoulders. She gave him a quick smile but didn't hug him the way she used to. Michael noticed, but he pushed the thought away. He wanted the day to feel light. They ordered burgers, and for a while, they talked about her classes and college plans. Michael listened carefully, nodding, trying to catch every word like it was gold. He felt proud, hearing how smart and determined she sounded. Then, halfway through the meal, Emily put her phone down and cleared her throat. "Dad, there's something I need to tell you." Her tone was serious. Michael's chest tightened, but he forced a smile. "Sure, sweetheart. What is it?" She took a deep breath. "For graduation, I want David to walk me." Michael froze. He wasn't sure he heard her right. "What?" he asked quietly. Emily looked away. "You know, when the parents go up with the student. I want David to be the one with me." The words hit Michael like a hammer. He felt his heart sink, but he tried to keep his face calm. "Emily," he said, his voice trembling, "I'm your father. That's supposed to be me." She shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "I know, Dad, but David's been there for me in ways. I just feel like it makes sense." Michael's throat burned. Been there? His mind raced through all the nights he stayed up working for her, the birthdays he saved every penny to make special, the years of putting her first. How could she say that? "Emily," he whispered, "do you really believe I haven't been there for you?" She fidgeted with her napkin. "It's not that. It's just, Mom thinks it's a good idea. And honestly, I don't want to cause drama at the ceremony. David's done so much for me. It just feels right." Michael's jaw tightened. "Linda." Of course. He could almost hear her voice in the background of this conversation, planting seeds in Emily's mind. He leaned forward, trying to catch her eyes. "Sweetheart, listen to me. I am your father. No matter what anyone says, no one can change that. This is our moment. Please don't take it away from me." Emily finally looked at him, and for a second, he thought he saw guilt in her eyes. But then she blinked it away. "Dad, I don't want to fight. I've made up my mind." Silence fell between them. Michael's chest felt heavy, his hands trembling under the table. He wanted to argue more, to shout, to demand she change her decision. But he saw the wall in her expression, the firmness in her voice. She wasn't going to change it. He forced a weak smile, though his eyes burned. "If that's what you want," he said softly, "then I won't stop you." Emily nodded quickly, almost relieved, and picked up her phone again. The rest of the meal was quiet, the laughter and warmth gone. When he dropped her back at Linda's house later, Emily gave him a quick hug and hurried inside. Michael sat in his car for a long time, gripping the steering wheel. His chest ached like someone had stabbed him. All the memories came rushing back. Her first steps, the nights she cried during thunderstorms, the time she told him she wanted to be a doctor, and he promised to support her dream. And now, she wanted another man to stand beside her at the biggest moment of her life. He couldn't shake the thought that Linda had played a part in that. She had always compared him to David, always made him feel small. Now it seemed she had convinced Emily to believe the same thing. That night, Michael sat alone in his apartment, staring at the roses he had planned to give her on graduation day. For the first time, he felt something he had never wanted to feel. Maybe he was losing his daughter for good. And as the days went on, the distance between them grew heavier. Calls went unanswered, texts came back short. The bond that once felt unbreakable now felt like a rope fraying with every pull. This moment, her decision, wasn't just about graduation. It was the breaking point. It was the sign that he was being replaced, not in name, but in her heart. And nothing in Michael's life had ever hurt more. Michael tried not to give up. After that lunch with Emily, he told himself maybe she just needed time. Maybe graduation stress was making her say things she didn't fully mean. He decided he would call her more, visit when he could, remind her of the bond they once had. But every time he called, it went the same way. The phone would ring, and sometimes she wouldn't answer. Other times she picked up but sounded distracted. "Hi, Dad. I'm busy. Can I call you later?" Later never came. One weekend he drove to Linda's house, hoping to surprise Emily, but Linda answered the door with her arms folded. "She's not here. She went shopping with David," she said, her voice sharp, almost smug. Michael forced a smile, nodded, and left, but inside his chest felt like it was caving in. Weeks passed, and it felt like Emily was slipping further away. At work, Michael overheard a coworker who lived near Linda's neighborhood. The man said casually, "I heard your daughter's stepdad raised her. You weren't really around, right?" Michael froze. "What did you say?" The man shrugged. "That's what people say. That David's the one who's been there, not you." Michael felt his stomach twist. It wasn't just Emily pulling away. People thought he had abandoned her. The story being told about him wasn't true, but it was spreading like wildfire. One evening, Michael couldn't take it anymore. He drove straight to Linda's house, heart pounding with anger. She opened the door, looking as calm as ever, a wine glass in her hand. "What are you telling her?" Michael demanded, his voice shaking. Linda raised her eyebrow. "Excuse me?" You know what I mean, he snapped. Emily told me she wants David to walk her at graduation. She acts like I was never there for her. And now I hear rumors that I wasn't around, that I abandoned her. That's your doing, Linda, isn't it? Linda smirked, leaning against the doorframe. If Emily feels closer to David, maybe you should look in the mirror instead of blaming me. Michael clenched his fists. I worked myself to the bone for that girl. I missed meals, I broke my back so she would never go without. And now you're trying to erase me from her life. Her tone turned cold. Michael, stop acting like a victim. David provides stability. He's present. He gives her things you never could. If she chooses him, that's her choice. Michael's throat tightened. I'm her father. Nothing will change that. Linda shrugged. Then act like one. But don't expect her to wait around for you to figure it out. She shut the door before he could reply. Michael stood there for a long time, his fists shaking at his sides. He wanted to scream, to break something, but all he felt was a crushing weight pressing down on him. That night he sat alone in his apartment, the silence louder than ever. He pulled out an old photo album from when Emily was little. Page after page showed her smiling in his arms, riding on his shoulders, holding his hand at the park. In one picture she had drawn a messy crayon card that said, "Best daddy ever." Michael pressed the photo against his chest, and the tears finally came. He sobbed into the empty room, whispering to himself, I was there. I was always there. Sleep didn't come that night. Instead, memories flooded his mind. He saw Emily at 5 years old, running to him after her first day of school. He saw her at 10, crying when she scraped her knee, and how he carried her on his back all the way home. He heard her laughter from the nights they built forts in the living room, pretending they were explorers. Those memories felt so alive, but now they were slipping away like sand through his fingers. The next day, something changed inside him. He realized this wasn't just about graduation anymore. Something deeper was wrong. Emily wasn't just choosing David. She truly believed Michael had been absent. That lie had been planted somewhere, and he needed to know how. He began quietly investigating. He went through old receipts and bank statements, reminders of the money he had sent every month for Emily's needs. He dug up copies of letters he had written her over the years, some of which never got replies. He checked the emails he had sent about school events, the messages Linda often ignored. The more he looked, the more he realized a disturbing pattern. It wasn't that Emily didn't care. It was that she probably never saw half of what he tried to give her. He remembered a time when Emily asked why he didn't come to a science fair, even though he had emailed Linda asking for the date. She never replied. Another time, Emily said, "You forgot my birthday card this year," but Michael remembered mailing it weeks early. Had Linda kept it from her? Michael's stomach turned as the pieces clicked together. It was becoming clear. Someone had been feeding Emily lies, maybe even hiding the truth from her. And the more he thought about it, the more certain he became that Linda had played a bigger role than he ever imagined. But what hurt most wasn't Linda's betrayal. It was the look in Emily's eyes when she spoke about David. She believed David was the only man who had stood by her. She believed her father, the man who sacrificed everything, was a ghost in her life. Michael knew then that he couldn't just sit back. He had to uncover the full truth. He had to prove to his daughter that he had never abandoned her. Because if he didn't, he would lose her forever.